Step-by-step tutorial. Beaded knot closure bracelet. Material list.
So we're going to get started with the bracelet, and we're going to grab our cord that we already cut, and we're going to make these little needles here so that we can put this through the button as well as the beads that we have selected. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate that. We're going to grab our lighter, and I am going to come in about a little bit in here, like maybe half an inch or so in. I'm going to light it up, and as I burn it, it's going to melt or go like this, and I'm going to stretch it out. Okay, so you're not really touching the cord with the flame, it's melting it enough so that when you see it go down, you can pull it, and then it creates this really good needle for you. Okay, so that is the first thing we want to do. This will help us get this through the beads and through our button. So we're going to grab our 20mm button, and this is the best to use are the ones that have two holes. These holes are kind of small, but it does fit through our button. Okay, so you're going to put two sides here. I'm going to do one on one side and one on the other. And then once you have those go through the button, you're going to make sure that you have them even at the bottom, and then you're going to grab the button and make sure it goes all the way like this. Okay, for the next part, we're going to go ahead and create some knots here, and I will go show you how to do those in the second part. So now we're going to go ahead and do a knot right here. We're going to try and do it not as close to the button. We want some room so that when we button, there's enough wiggle room. Okay, so it's really important. I'm going to do an overhand knot, but you can do snake knots if you'd like, whatever you want to do the type of knot, but I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to do an overhand knot. So I'm going to grab my button like this, and I'm going to wrap it around my two fingers, and I'm going to put this long piece on this side, so I hold it with my two fingers like this. I'm going to grab my tweezers, and I'm going to go inside this loop, and I'm just going to grab this and pull it through. Okay, now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to put it back where I had it on this position. Keeps it out of the way. And then this is the step that is important when you're doing these types of knots with the tweezers, because this helps you keep your knot right in the spot that you want it to be. Okay, so you're going to put it first through the loop that is wrapped around this bottom part of your fingers. So you're going to put your tweezers through that, and then you're going to grab both of those right there. Okay, and then you're going to place your tweezers where you want that knot to end. Like I said, I don't want it to be too close, so I'm going to leave that wiggle room for the button, and now I'm going to pull and tighten. Okay, so I'm going to pull each of that string, make sure, and then I am going to take the tweezers out of this knot, and then I'm just going to pull. Okay, and that's how you do that overhand knot. We're going to be using this type of knot throughout the bracelet, so we're going to get to demonstrate it a couple of more times. Okay, all right, and you can do just that one will be sufficient, but if you do the snake knots, you can do like maybe 1, 2, or 3 knots if you'd like. Okay, we're going to keep it simple. Like I said, we're doing the overhand, and now we're going to start with creating the rest of the bracelet, which is going to be a very repetitive process. So I have chosen the beads that I showed you at the beginning, and these again are 6mm. So we're going to be alternating sides on this bracelet. You know, each string we're going to be alternating where we put the beads. So you can start at the top or you can start at the bottom. And when I mean this top or bottom is I'm going to lay my bracelet this way, and this is my top and this is my bottom string. Okay, so I'm going to start from the top one, and I'm going to grab in any design that you want. I'm going to grab my bead, and I'm going to thread it through. And this is going to be, once you have it here, you can put whatever design you want on this bracelet. You can do a spacer, a bead, and a spacer, but we're going to keep it simple. We're going to do one bead. And then you're going to decide how far apart you want the bead from the knots, okay? So I want it about there, and I want to keep it consistent throughout the bracelet. So again, I'm going to, with my fingernail, I'm holding that spot right there, and I am going to wrap it around, and I'm going to put this in this direction, grabbing my tweezers again, and we're going to pull that through. Once I have that pulled through, I'm going to hold this on this direction. I'm going to go to the bottom of my fingers and through this loop, and now I'm going to grab right where I want my knot to be, okay? So right around there, this is where I want my knot to be. So then I'm going to pull on both of these. You want to make sure you're holding that tight. And you might want to do one at a time so that they're nice and tight. And then you're going to take the tweezers out and you're going to push down, okay? Push down like that. And that's how you do your overhand knot. Okay. All right, so now we're going to do the opposite. And so you see how we have that one on top. Now I'm going to string a bead on the bottom of this one. So we're going to grab the other one. Again, you choose your design. So I'm going to use this one here. And we're going to thread it through. And we are going to do the same thing. So as you can see, one's alternating sides. One's top, one's the bottom. Okay, that gives it a cute, fun design. That looks really, really pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and do another overhand knot. So every time I add a new bead on the opposite sides, I am going to do one of these knots overhand again. Tweezers, I'm going to bring them through here, grab this, pull through, and then I'm going to grab this, put it this way, hold it. I'm going to put this through the bottom of my fingers and hold it right where I want the knot to end. Right there, that's securely held so I don't misplace the knot. And I'm going to pull, and then I'm going to pull my tweezers out. Pull those out. Okay. And then I'm going to tighten, but I'm going to bring this down so it doesn't move from its place. Okay, and that's what you see. Okay, so now that you have done the knots and you're doing your pattern, you're going to work it to your desired length. Now I'm going to show you how you can measure it so that it can come out to a certain size. So let's put, for example, this one that I have already made. This one measures, when it's closed, it measures 8 inches, okay, when it's closed. So let me show you how, based on the size of the beads that I used, which is the largest is 6 mm, just like we're using here. What you're going to do is you want to make sure you measure from the button, the bottom of the button, okay, all the way to the eyelet. Now the eyelet measures about 1 inch, okay, which means that if this laying down like this, it's going to measure about 8.5 or so, because the beads, depending on the size of the bead, it takes away from the inner diameter of your wrist, okay, which means that laying flat is going to be a little longer than the actual size of the bracelet once it's put around the circumference of the wrist. Okay, so your button, we want to make sure, let me make sure I get that on the frame. You want to make sure that you are measuring from the bottom of the button all the way to where about your eyelet's going to be. Okay, and that to me right here is about 8.5. Okay, but when I close this bracelet, when I close the bracelet and actually put it on my bracelet sizer, it actually falls to be a size 8. Okay, so it's a size 8. So it loses about 1/2 inch of the long when we measured it laying flat. That's why one tip for all that make bracelets, you never want to measure your bracelet out flat. You always want to make sure that you know that depending on the thickness of your bead, it's going to take away from the inner diameter of the bracelet. Okay, so if I used bigger beads like 8 mm or 10 mm beads, then I'm going to have to make it a little longer than 8.5 because it's going to make it a smaller size once it's wrapped around your wrist. Okay, so based off of what I explained to you, if you want to make this bracelet let's say a size 7.5, what you're going to have to do is your design. And when I mean design, I mean the beaded part. Okay, just the beaded part. We're not counting the eyelet when I say the design. So you're going to have to put on the beads here so that this can equal out to 7 inches. Okay, from here to the bottom of from the bottom of your button all the way to where it measures around 7 inches approximately. Because remember, my eyelet here measured about an inch, so that's going to add a whole inch. So once I'm done with the eyelet, the total length of my bracelet flat down will be approximately. Now this is approximately depending on how, you know, how many beads and what you do, but you want to get it close to around that size. So it would be about 8 total. That means that when it goes around the wrist or your measuring tool, it's going to lose about half an inch. So that way the one that measures 8 inches laying flat will measure about 7.5 or so, which is the size that we are saying, we want to make this one. Okay, so you want to work until you have your desired length. So just keep that in mind. The eyelet is about 1 inch on my sample because of the size of the button that I'm using, but yours can vary. So you want to take into consideration the size of the eyelet and the size of the design, which is your beaded part of your bracelet to the bottom, okay, the bottom of your button. Okay, so go ahead and continue creating your length, and I will meet you where we're going to start doing the eyelet so that you can complete your bracelet. So here is a tip to make sure that your knots are all uniform and they look good. There's a little trick to this that I have found works for me. So I'm going to show you. So when I'm doing my knots, I tend to keep the 2 strands laying flat like this. So when I put them over my fingers, as you can see, they're right next to each other. Okay. And so when I pull this through, I pull it through, and I try and keep everything flat and the 2 strands close to each other. So then when I go here and do the knot, when I pull, they're all kept like kind of together and they're nice and neat. And then so when I pull, I put down. So the knot looks kind of uniform. Do you see how each of these look like they're going the same direction? So if you seem that your knots are not uniformed or they look different, you might want to try that trick. Just making sure that every time you wrap around, especially because we're using 2 strands, that they're not twisted and you're doing this, okay? Because that will change the look of the knot. So make sure they're laying side by side. And when you do this, they're overlapping really nice and neat. Even when you pull them through this, you want to make sure that it's going in the direction. So you see how these are coming out like this? Don't do this, don't twist it, but make it go that way. Okay? So then when you put your tweezers through here, you want to pull this out this way. So you see how the knot kind of closing up really nice and it's not twisted. So that's my tip for you guys, okay? Now we're going to go and learn how to do the eyelet for the bracelet. Okay, so now that we have our design done, I'm going to show you how to do the eyelet. And I just want to make sure we measure. Remember, we want to make this bracelet to be approximately about 7.5 when we're done with it. So I did my design up to 7 inches because with the eyelet, it's going to add maybe another inch. So that when it wraps around, remember how I said it takes away about maybe half an inch or so because I used my 6mm beads. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use some seed beads. I'm going to use some 4mm seed beads. And the reason why I do that is I want to make it where the eyelet, not only does it look nice, it's a very decorative as you can see here. I don't know if you see how decorative that looks. That looks really nice. And it just easier because the string, I want it to protect the string. Okay, I don't want the string to be exposed. So it also gives it a really nice look. So I'm going to be using the seed beads in this color. I chose a very light kind of shiny lavender, and I'm just going to be putting in you want to put the seed beads on so that there's enough length to put your button through. Okay, so on this one it took about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seed beads, but it all depends on what seed beads you're going to use. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing that, and I'm going to be, as I do this, I'm going to measure, kind of eyeball it and compare it to the button. Okay, so I'm going to do this on both sides. Again, the amount of seed beads you're putting on here will depend on your size that you're using. Okay, I'm using 4mm and they're not uniformed, so some are smaller and bigger. And okay, so I'm just going to show you. So when I have those done on both sides, I will compare it to my button. Okay. Okay, sorry about the lighting. It got really dark, so now I have to use my lamp. So here I went ahead and I put the seed beads on each side. I'm using about 6 on each side, okay, just to give it that look and that protection on the cord. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of measure the button. Okay, so I'm going to grab the button and I want to see the size. So you see how that fits nicely? We want the longest part of that button. So you want to put it like right in the middle. So that's around a good size. I'm not going to tighten up here too much. And I'm going to put in one of the seed beads on both now. Okay, I'm going to bring that seed bead down to create this. Okay. So the eyelet. Okay. And now we're going to do your overhand knot again on this part. Going to do an overhand knot to secure that part. Like I said, I don't want to tighten the eyelet too much, okay? So I can have some room in there to put the button in. Your knot, like the ones you've been doing on the bracelet. You want to pull both strands to make sure the knot is down. So you see, I have some room where the beads kind of move. We want that, and we want to make sure, and the reason why is because we want to make sure that the button goes through really nice like this. Okay, so there's halfway of the button and it's going to go through. That's what we're looking for on this. And then I'm going to measure. So this should be about let's see, because we want to make this 7.5 when it's closed. So it's going to probably be approximately about 8 inches. Okay, so that when it's closed completely, as the bracelet is closed, I'm going to measure it over here. They should be around 7.5 when it gets on the thing. So see, we got it right to the size we were looking for. And here I'm going to do a little decoration here. Some you can choose to leave the bracelet without anything hanging. So you would just cut off the string or the cord, and then you would seal it with the lighter. Or you can do a little hanging decoration so that when it is buttoned, it has a little decoration. I kind of like the hanging part because this bracelet can be worn either with the button in the front as the decoration or the beads. So see, even if it's worn this way, I think that looks really pretty. Okay, so you decide what you want to do here and how long you want to do that with. So I'm going to end it with one of these lighter purple. And I don't want to do it too long. Like right about there. So right about there, I'm going to do my overhand knot, pull through, and then I'm going to grab my tweezers to go underneath and select that length where I want it to be. And then I'm going to pull. Okay. The same knot we've been doing. And I'm going to pull, make that knot so that my bead hangs right about there. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Grab this one, thread it through. I think it gives it a really nice look to put on a, to leave this hanging. You can, offset it where one's longer. You can do whatever you want. Add a little bit of seed beads or small beads to complete your look. Your design, and you do what you want to make it look pretty, okay? I'm finishing this up and I'm going to show you how to seal those knots. And I want to make sure they're about the same. Right about there. And then I'm going to pull. Pull, pull, pull. Tweezers off. And then I'm going to see. It offset it a little bit, but I can pull, because I haven't tightened it yet. So I can pull down a little, and that made them even. Okay. So now, I can't show, normally when I'm doing a live, I can't show how to do this. And I apologize for the lighting, for the shadow. But let's make sure that you're able to see this. So I'm going to cut close to the knot, but leaving just about that much. Okay, I'm going to do that on this side as well. Right about there. And now I'm going to grab my lighter. And with the lighter, I'm going to, again, I don't really touch it. When I turn it on, I'm going to turn it on and then kind of get close to it. And then it's going to start melting. And then I want to push it down. Okay. Make sure you don't pull away like I did. Okay. Burn this one off because I pulled and I created like a little needle. And we don't want that. Okay. Like that. And then I'm going to do the same over here. This one's probably a little too long, but we'll see. Right there. And then I'm going to make sure it melts. Not catch on fire, but melt. And then I'm going to hold it and then we want to make sure we don't get it down to the knot. So you want to flatten it out so it looks like a little head pin. Okay. And there's your bracelet. This is how you make this beautiful, simple bracelet. Okay. I hope you liked the tutorial and I can't wait to see how many of these you create. They are fun, simple once you get the technique down, and they can be adjusted to a longer length. You can make them longer and make them necklaces, chokers, anklets. The possibilities are endless with this technique, and make sure that you connect with me. And if you have any questions, you can put them down in the comments. And I can't wait to bring you another easy project for you to learn along with me. So thank you very much, and we will see you in our next tutorial.